Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Caring Counts. We're happy you're here. Caring Counts' goal is to connect people in memory care because the more connections we have, hopefully the more support we have. Caring Counts is brought to you by Applewood Our House. Today, we are so excited to have Catherine Wells, CEO and founder of Serenity Engage. We'll get into what that means here in a second. But Catherine, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks, Taylor. I'm excited to be here.
Good, good. Well, let's dive right in. Catherine, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your mom?
Absolutely. I love to talk about my mom, so thank you for the opportunity. So I am the CEO and founder of Serenity Engage. My entire career has been spent in software. So I've been a software executive my whole life. But 10 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we noticed little things at home. My cousin actually told me that it is the person who lives with the person with the memory issues that notices it first. So my dad would call me and say, you know, your mom, I think she might have gotten lost the other day. She won't tell me, but I just have this sense. And so we kind of began working through these things and noticing things like she couldn't add the bill anymore at the restaurant. She really struggled with that, and she would add it wrong. You could see some embarrassment. So there was the early time when it was such a struggle and we didn't know what to do as a family. So we were kind of learning on demand, trying to figure out what to do next. My mom was born and raised on a dairy farm in upstate New York, in a town called Clyde, New York, that was less than 100 population. So she had to get up every morning and get the eggs from the chicken and milk the cows and then walk to the bus stop and wait for the bus and go to a one-room school that served kindergarten up through 12th grade. And I can't even remember how many people were in their class, but you know, it was one of those, so it's kind of that Little House on the Prairie feel. And then she met my dad, who lived in New York, or lived in LA, but went to New York for one summer with his college friend who lived there, and met my mom on a blind date. And one of my favorite stories is the doctor who took care of my mom and dad in the last few years of their life. She asked my dad once, was it love at first sight for you? And he said, for me, it was, yeah. And that all of us kids just went, ah!
Right.
Those moments and memories.
Yeah.
And
hard.
yeah, and my mom had an amazing life.
I want to dive in a little bit about when you first kind of noticed, and maybe it wasn't you personally, but your family, that you said the person closest or that lives with your mom, when you first started to kind of notice some memory issues, that something might be a little bit bigger, maybe we need to start looking for some long-term assisted living care.
Yeah, it was absolutely 100% my dad who noticed everything and who orchestrated, like, what do we do next? He was an engineer. He was actually a nuclear engineer in life. And so he had that very, I know, smart man. He had that very logical part of his brain where he could separate out the emotion of it and think about, okay, if this is what's happening, what do I need to do next? And I'm really thankful for that, because it was easy for us kids, and I would say probably a little more so for my brothers, and I think they would agree, that it was easy to kind of poo-poo it a little bit and say, that's just getting older, Dad. That's just what happened.
Oh, gotcha. So, yep.
Pretty easy to just kind of, it's okay. It's not as bad as you're saying it is. But eventually I went with my dad to the neurologist when he took my mom to an appointment, and the neurologist had to break the news to my mom, and we were there, and it was pretty rough. So he did the right things in terms of having a neurologist. He didn't make the assessment himself. He had a neurologist do it. And then when we had to move her into memory care, I think this is the best advice I ever got. A friend of mine's husband said to me, and he had just dealt with his mom, his dad actually passing from Alzheimer's at that point.
Okay.
He said, Kathy, it is not when you need it or when your dad needs it that you move someone in to a community. Or sorry, it's not when they need it. It's when you guys need it, when you can't do it anymore. Because we all want to support our loved ones. If we could, we would have them at home always. We would never move them in if we could, but it's not realistic. And we've seen the toll that it can take on the people living with the person with Alzheimer's and how much they give up of themselves, which of course they do with full generosity. But I don't think that's what the person with Alzheimer's or memory issues would want for their loved one.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point that you're kind of making, and that person told you, and I've seen it throughout the people that I've talked to in this industry and going through this journey, if you will, that self-care is super, super important. And when you're with that person 24/7, you're right, you know everything. You know everything going on. You're the primary caregiver, whether you identify with that term or not, you're there caring for that person. So you're in it 110%, if you will. So when you do move someone into memory care or assisted living, and some of that, I don't want to use the word control because it's not really control, but some of that being with them 24/7 is gone now. There's some new things, a new normal kind of sets in. Is that right?
Very much so. And it's really important to think about the person, like the husband, the spouse, whoever the spouse is, and or the primary family member who's caring for the older adult. If you put yourself in their shoes, this is the most horrific decision, one of the most horrific decisions they may have ever made in their life. And so moving someone in, the rush of emotions are everything from relief, really, and then guilt over having relief, over not being able to do it, not feeling like I was there for my loved one. There's so many mixed emotions that happen, and we do go from full insight and management to not really having any idea what's happening in their daily life. And I think I can say for me, and I would say the same is true for my dad, the absolute hardest part was the first night, not knowing when she went to bed. Did she go to bed okay? Well, it's like when you send your child off to camp, and I know those are silly comparisons, but you have that same mama bear emotion. No matter who you are, there's a mama bear that comes out. I protect my loved one no matter what, and I don't know what's going on. So I'm a human being. I'm going to probably make up stuff if I don't know what's going on. So I think the best form of communication comes in those first 2 weeks that someone is moved into a community, where really the family almost feels like they're there, getting constant updates, however that is, whatever form that is. Personally, I think it should be Serenity Engage, which is why it was created, and we can talk about that later. But an easy way to have photos, to know that the next morning that mom woke up and had a good breakfast, and here's a quick picture of her drinking her orange juice. Suddenly, everything changes.
Let's go back to you call it the decision, the horrific decision. We just got a comment in that said, you're correct. It's a mix of relief and guilt for sure. And I think that resonates with people. And if that resonates with you, I mean, throw a comment up here and let us know, that you're going through the same thing and how you're going through it and things like that. But the horrific decision, the choice has been made, right? They're moving in. The unknown is what I want to touch on with that. You mentioned what you don't know can be really scary, right? Your brain starts to kind of make assumptions. Your brain starts to go maybe to the darker spots, the more negative spots, when really maybe that's not even the case. But you don't know, and how do you help what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
First of all, I want to say hi, Joanna. That's my cousin.
Oh, great. Hi, Joanna.
Yeah, so I'm so excited. And Joanna had to go through this with her mom who had Parkinson's. And in the LA area, it's a minimum hour drive anywhere you go. And she visited her mom every single day. And that kind of commitment that family has to knowing what's happening with their mom or dad. Things that drive us every single day. So when we talk about things like, you know, when you're not there, the things that we make up, that's just human nature. And there are terms for it. And for the life of me, it's not coming to me at the moment, but it's like negative perceptions that we just create. If you think about the media, what do you hear in the media about assisted livings or senior livings, or they call it nursing homes, which is actually no longer a term that's used. There is skilled nursing, acute care, assisted living, independent living, memory care. They're very different things, but they use the term nursing home in the media. And immediately when you think nursing home, what do you think? You think about people who are in wheelchairs with their heads hung over and they're all wheeled in the middle and no one's paying any attention to them. That is so old school. It is not what happens in today's facilities. So we have this perception in the media that's not a great perception. And then you add something like COVID on it where we can't get in anymore. And even before COVID, where we've left someone and it just is heart-wrenching, but we have to go on with our lives. If we had more insight, more communication, if we were able to see what was going on a daily basis, family would calm down and relax, and in a good way, because they would know that things are good with their loved one. It goes back to the mama bear. And I just want to touch on this. I just hung up with one of my early customers, Dignity Hospice here in the Denver area. Jenna Gurton is the president and CEO there. And we were talking about how Serenity has changed their culture almost, and the way that they're able to communicate. And she shared a story with me that they had a family member in the California area whose mom was here in Denver and put on hospice care. And that family member was very upset. Every single time they talked, the family member was contentious and angry. And they put them on Serenity. And what Serenity does is allows them to quickly send HIPAA compliant messages and photos and keep them up to date and have conversations. And she said it was almost overnight that family member relaxed because now they have access to the team that is taking care of mom.
Right. Let's highlight that for a second, because when you say team, it's not only the caregiver team on the community side, the leadership, the management, the caregivers, the engagement people, all of those. That's a team of people in itself, but that should include the family members as well. It's a team. And so Serenity Engage really connects those people, because as we've kind of not discovered, we already knew this, but as we've kind of talked about today, communication is so important. So my next question for you about your mom, when she was in the facility or in the community, how did the communication evolve throughout her time in the community with you?
This is so great. It was when we moved mom and dad. So eventually we had to move dad into assisted living. So we moved them a little bit closer from Colorado Springs, where they had lived, to Denver, which was kind of in between me and my two brothers that do live here. And I was 30 minutes away, 20 minutes on a good traffic day. And I would go every weekend, and, each of my brothers would come in. So we kind of started a text thread ourselves, the kids, to talk about mom and dad, right? Who's to visit, what's going on. And then we found ourselves sending a picture every time we were there. I jokingly say I think my brothers did it not to share the photo, but to prove that they were there. See, I really did show up. We have a great family. So,
I love those family dynamics. That's great.
I know. So fun. So we, and then we have a brother in Wisconsin who, couldn't be there. So he cherished those photos. So it was, we found that happening, and then we started having quarterly care conferences, is what they're called, with this staff there. So I had no idea what that was. We jokingly called them parent-teacher conferences.
Right.
Kind of went in, me and my other brother, who was also power of attorney with me. We'd go in, we'd have this conference, and that was it. So it was kind of talking about the level of care. They always asked, of course, they were amazing. I love the people who took care of mom and dad. They always asked what else they could do, how we thought things were going. But it was very odd and sort of an awkward way to be communicating, because the things that matter don't always come up in your mind in that moment. And I know family members who feel like those quarterly conferences are just the meeting that's going to tell you whether you're going to pay more a month or not, rather than a real connection. And I know that's not what the communities want. The communities really want a connection. So when you talk about how the communication evolved, it started there. And then one time, and this is going to sound like the smallest thing in the world to many people, one time I called the facility's salon, hair salon, and made an appointment for my mom. My mom always kept her hair really short, really, easy to manage. Her hair was getting very long. She didn't quite look like herself, and it was kind of upsetting my dad a little bit. And I went on the weekend, and her hair hadn't been cut. And I could not get anyone to respond to me. Why? What happened? And so I was sitting at lunch with my dad and my mom in the memory care. And I said, I don't know what happened. I have tried. I called multiple times, blah, blah, blah. Finally, someone came over to me and said, I heard that the caregivers during the week brought her up to the salon multiple times, but that she was batting them away. She wouldn't participate and cooperate. And that's happened with Alzheimer's. So had I just known that whole situation could have gone differently. If they had had a way to communicate with me and say, Kath, we're trying, do you have any ideas? Or we can't quite get her in, it's not working. Can we reschedule her for next week? Then I don't show up surprised on the weekend, and I don't show up and go, they didn't do their job, right?
It removes the unknown.
All goes back to the unknown.
Yeah, and so that's how Serenity maybe was born, from that kind of experience.
Yep. Yeah, and so lots of things evolved from there. The communication started to get a little bit better. But what I did, because I was creating Serenity in my mind at that time, and we thought, okay, let's test it. So we got an iPad, we put it on a kiosk, we put one in Dad's room, one in Mom's room, and we asked anyone who went into the room to post. I'm here. Here's what I did. How your mom's doing today. And it worked really well. And then one day I was visiting my dad, and the doctor who rounds came in, and she looked at the iPad and said, what is that? And I explained it. And I explained my kind of vision for bringing everybody who is providing care to our loved ones onto a single platform to communicate and collaborate. And that, as you said rightly, Taylor, includes the family. And she was like, you mean I could go home at night, and if I forgot to say something to a family, I could just message them because it's HIPAA compliant? And I'm like, yeah. And then the family knows. And she just absolutely loved it. I will say that it really became apparent to me how critical it was when Mom went on hospice. And we had the hospice providers who come into the facility. A lot of people think hospice means you go to a hospice hospital. Hospice actually comes into wherever you live. And if that's in a community, they'll come in and be there are hospitals too, but they're another layer of support. And I had a message every single day from the hospice providers. And I should rephrase that. I'm very selfish. I and my brothers all had a message. Yeah. So one post from the hospice provider, one photo, and all of us immediately got the message and had peace of mind. Like, oh, good, Mom got her toenails done today. We thought that was the funnest thing in the world. So,
yeah, that is great. And you still feel connected when you're either 20 minutes away or states away. You still feel connected to that, especially during a time And I don't want to make the assumption that hospice means end of life, because it's definitely not the case.
Right.
But it can lead that way as well. And so to feel so connected in a time like that, that's important.
Yeah, very important. And I will go back to Applewood's mission of moments and memories. The moment that I walked in and my mom's hair wasn't done was not a good moment for me. I was so mama bear about it. I was like, I want her haircut. It's what makes her feel good. It's what makes her feel like herself, even if outwardly she doesn't seem like she's herself. So that could have been a moment of joy. It could have been a moment of, oh, Mom, look at your hair. You look so beautiful today, Mom. I miss you so much. You know, all of that could have just been a little bit different. And the memories that were created when we did create the ability to communicate with each other, I have a post that I use on my website that is a chat between myself and the hospice providers for my dad, actually, talking about his Coca-Cola. He wanted his Coca-Cola all the time, but it made us all smile. And it also gives family a way to appreciate the caregivers, the people who are providing care, so we can message back and just say, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing. How often does family get to say that to the people who are providing the care in the senior living, especially now during COVID, when we aren't getting in to even see them and be able to share that with them?
Right. And as things evolve, we'll kind of see what happens with that. But yes, staying connected even without visitation right now. Applewood is rolling out Serenity right now in our homes, in our community. And we're super excited about connecting our families, having a better connection with our families and our care teams. I think it's great. Really unifying that team. So my next question for you is, with your mom, we talked about, noticing memory care needs, getting placed in a community, going to that community, and then going on hospice. What was the hardest part about this whole process?
About the whole journey?
The whole journey for you.
Losing my mom right in front of me. Still alive, but losing her. Looking at her and knowing that inside her was my mom, but I knew she didn't know who I was. She wasn't behaving the way that she would have. Just that horrible, horrible time of someone not being, you've lost them, but they're still physically there. That was the hardest.
Yeah. I haven't been through something like that myself, and I so appreciate you sharing that with me and feeling comfortable to share that. Thank you. I can't even imagine. And your strength. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
So let's go to the other side of that coin. What was the silver lining? What was the best part of this whole journey for you?
Being able to be there for my mom and dad. Watching my brothers and I come together like never before. Like, when we were kids, we were siblings. We'd fight. We loved each other, but we'd fight. We did a lot of camping. We were a great family. We were really close. But then when we grew up, we all kind of did our own things. And even though we were still really close, we came together in a way that I just, I hope that other families have that experience. I know that this is a time that can tear families apart. I just hope that it offers an opportunities for families to come together and just be there.
I think I appreciate you sharing that with me too. I love that your family came together. I think that is beautiful. And you're exactly right. It affects different families differently, and everyone's going to respond differently to this sort of situation, this journey. And I'm excited in a maybe future Facebook Live episode to dive into more of the family dynamics and what that might be like for people, because it's an important part of memory care for your loved one.
It is. And I will say, and I think this is important, we had some family members with different ideas of what should be happening. And we had to navigate that. And we did, fortunately, we navigated it very well, I think.
There's communication right there. I mean, that's why it's important, right?
Yeah.
So my last question for you today before we end is, what would you like our audience to take away from your journey with your mom?
So at Serenity, I call the adult child who is most primarily responsible for the care coordination and communication among family and the care providers. I call that person the CEO of the care team. That's something I would like people on the family sides to take away, that it does not mean that you are giving the care on a daily basis. That's why you hire the help. That may sound cold. I don't mean it that way. You hire a caring, supportive system around them. But really, you're the CEO of that care team. It is not your job to tell them what to do, but it is kind of our role to make sure the pieces are in place and to be advocates for our loved ones. My mother was nonverbal the last 2 years of her life. My father his health was failing. And so I was her voice. And if I wasn't her voice, who was going to be an advocate for her? I mean, the care team they were amazing, but the care team has 33 other people in memory care to deal with. And all the families of those 33 people. And it's important for the family to recognize that that's part of the role in this, is to really, I don't want to say micromanage, but provide that glue, the connection, and make sure that they are part of the communication and collaboration.
Yeah, you touched on so many things there, I think, that are so important. I love the term CEO of the care team, because it is a team. It's whether you have the professional caregivers in a community, small or big, you have your other family members, you then have your hospice care workers, you have all these people that you're kind of connecting with, and for you to be that advocate for your mom throughout that process, I think is beautiful. So that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
Part of that, Taylor, is I just want to connect this dot too, is as a CEO of anything, you're the CEO of your own life. Everybody is. It's we're the ones overlooking everything in our lives. As the quote CEO of the care team, it's important to know when to lean on the experts. And that's, I think, part of the message I want to create is I don't want the care team to think, oh, family's going to come in and tell us what to do. That's not what I'm about. They're the experts. We want the executive directors, the nurses, the clinicians, the physical therapists. We're looking for and relying on that expertise to care for our loved one.
It's the collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for being here with us for Caring Counts. We so appreciate talking about communication and memory care. Thank you all for watching this week. We'll be back again at in 2 Wednesdays. So with our next Caring Counts live episode, we're super excited to be doing these things because hopefully if we find commonalities and connections, we can have more support in memory care. I will go ahead and put in the comments Serenity Engage's website. You can get a hold of Kathy that way if you have any questions for her. Catherine, thank you for being here.
Oh, Taylor, thank you. It's such a pleasure. And thank you to everyone at Applewood Our House. You have an amazing, amazing group there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We love what we do. And thank you again. Thanks, everyone.